Super Saiyan, Dragon Ball's single most iconic transformation, a cultural milestone that transcended its source and changed entertainment forever. And I think it was a bad idea. To start, let me ask you a question. When was the last time a human Z fighter won an important fight? If you said any point after 1989, after Tien beat a Cyberman, you would be wrong. That is 3.5 decades, 37 years of nothing that solidified the minute Goku's hair turned yellow. And to really show you how low their narrative value has sunk, I want to compare two tournament arcs, one before Super Saiyan and one after. The 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai takes place in the dying breath of the original Dragon Ball manga, and is the conclusion of the much longer Piccolo saga. Composed of a basic tournament structure, this is where the fighting mettle of the Z Fighters is tested against the dastardly Piccolo Jr., the reincarnate of a Demon King, as well as the scars of their past. My favorite example of this can be seen in the first lengthy fight between the previously evil martial arts master, Tien, and the assassin, Tao Pai Pai, both of which are humans and rivals of our protagonist, Goku, that, despite being beaten by the Saiyan warrior, show an unrelenting determination to get stronger. Tien does this through the continued diligence and mastery of his ancient techniques, and Tao Pai Pai does this through ghoulish cybernetic enhancements. And so the question this fight asks is if dedication to martial arts can overcome mechanical strength, and if through that, if Tien can lay to rest the demons of his troubled past. And it's this love of martial arts you can really feel course the vein of every one of our major characters. Goku and his insatiable hunger for strength, Krillin and his rivalry of the Turtle Hermit Way, Yamcha and his Wolf Fist mastery. All of these characters, and the fights between them, are dripped with an insatiable love of martial arts. When Goku has his battle with Tien in the semi-final round, he must overcome his new abilities through redefining what it means to be a disciple of the Turtle Hermit Way. When Goku fights Piccolo Jr., he must not only win his fight, he must wager that his own devotion to martial arts is enough to save the world. This, in its most pure essence, is the way fights used to work before Super Saiyan. They were pure comparisons of ability, strength, and determination, and it all gave way to reinforce the main message of Dragon Ball. And what that was that strength could be achieved by never giving up and continuing to push your limits. And this theme permeates Dragon Ball's secondary characters. I already mentioned Tien, but Krillin, Roshi, hell, even Yamcha showed that any strong-willed person could rival the likes of even the legendary Son Goku. Now, keep all of that in mind as we skip forward several decades to the Tournament of Power. The Tournament of Power is a very different type of tournament than we used to see. As opposed to the previous threat of a Piccolo-led regime, the Tournament of Power is not only consisting of the multiverse's strongest fighters, but has 7 universes at stake. And even still, amongst Universe 7, still stand Krillin, Tien, and Roshi. People who have spent their lives dedicated to martial arts, people who through their own perseverance have driven the likes of Son Goku to near defeat several decades ago. With the exception of what I can only describe as plot-related bullshit by Roshi to help Goku beat Jiren, the human Z fighters are worthless in this tournament. The once competent rivals that took actual character development to overcome have become ants. And so, if you were to ask if humans, through their love of martial arts, the main message of Dragon Ball, are able to do anything remotely useful in this tournament, and indeed any point after Super Saiyan, the answer you would receive is a gently phrased but absolute no. Now, to understand how deep a writing corner the Z humans are in, I have devised a little analogy. Imagine that you are really into competitive fighting, and that you and your friends have been fighting for several years. You go to the same gym, you test out your new grappling styles, you do everything together. You're having a great time. It's not like you win very often, but you don't have to. Because despite how violent your bonding is, it's bonding nonetheless. And that is why it becomes so unnerving when you realize that one of your friends is becoming much stronger. So strong that he begins doing things that are not physically possible. So strong that when he taps his hand against a wall, it begins to break, and you and your friends crumple like pieces of trash. And suddenly, it doesn't feel like you're talking to your friend. It feels like you're interrupting a god. And of course, you try to catch up. You train every day until your muscles break and your bones start to crack. And you realize that what was once a glass of difference between you and your friend has swallowed you whole and become an ocean. Whatever progress you make, just a drop in that difference. And whenever you look your friend in the eye, you don't see yourself in the reflection, you see a speck of dust in the wind. And all of these issues stem from Dragon Ball's transformations, which stem from Super Saiyan 1. The issue with Super Saiyan, and indeed every transformation, is how steep their increase in power is. The cliffs of these transformations are so high that any character that wants to be useful must either transform themselves or languish in uselessness, and accept that they can't do anything about it. And unfortunately for the Z humans, their only option is the latter. What was once their perseverance and resolve, little more than a party trick, to be occasionally ridiculed. For as much as I love Dragon Ball, it's hard to argue that its focus is anything else than fighting, or in other words, the pure acquisition of power. And by the nature of Dragon Ball's transformations, it leaves the existence of its humans as nothing more than relics. Broken characters whose only narrative potential is either ridiculous or ridicule. As I conclude this video, let me make one thing clear. Dragon Ball is a show I really care about. Watching Dragon Ball as a child is an experience that I, and I imagine many of you, wouldn't trade for the world. And whenever I choose to look back on eras that I enjoyed the most, many of them are after Z. Specifically, eras whose defining features are their transformations. Frieza, Cell, the androids, these are some of my favorite arcs of the entire series. And many of my favorite series would probably not exist without Dragon Ball Z and Super Saiyan. So I'm not saying that Super Saiyan or any other transformation is bad, or even inherently detrimental to the Dragon Ball franchise. But what I am saying is that all of those came at a significant cost. A cost paid by the characters in its sidecast and its main message. It made characters that once represented something greater be unable to do anything in the narrative, and, ironically, dilute Dragon Ball's message. Self-determination could no longer overwhelm significant physical force. So while I don't hate the path that Dragon Ball went down, I can't help but imagine a different path, one where Dragon Ball's message was more intact and where they could be still called Goku's rivals. And what hurts me to say is that that future would have existed without Super Saiyan.